Hey, hi. This is going to be a review of quiz number 3. Um, so there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. Okay, one of them was worth a lot though. So anyway, we'll just get started with the first question. Here's an argument. Premise 1, if it's misty, then we will not go rowing. Premise 2, it's misty. Conclusion, so we will not go rowing. Which of the following statements closely shares the form of premise 1? If it's raining, then we will go play in the mud. Right? If it's snowing, then we will have hot chocolate. If it's snowing, then it's not the case that we will wear shorts. It's either raining or it's not raining. Okay, so to answer this one, you needed to figure out what the form of premise 1 was. Right, so one thing to note, right, it's an if-then statement. Right, so the answer should be itself an if-then statement. Right, so we can rule out it's either raining or it's not raining. Right. Another thing to note is that the antecedent and the consequent are different. Right, so that would be another way to rule out it's either raining or it's not raining. Right, so the important thing to note is that in the consequent there's a not. Right, so the one that's going to have the same form, right, is going to have a not also, or it's not the case that in the consequent. Right, so if it's raining, then we will go play in the mud. Well, it's of the right form in that it's if-then, right, but the consequent doesn't have a not in it. Right, if it's snowing, then we will have hot chocolate. Right, again, if-then, but no not in the consequent, and that leaves if it's snowing, then it's not the case that we will wear shorts. Right, so not and it's not the case are the same. Right, we symbolize them with the tilde. So the third answer is the correct answer. Second question, what most accurately depicts the form of the following? All dragons who are friendly are users of illegal drugs. Here are your possible answers. All D who are F are U. No D who are F are U. All F who are not F are not U. And all D are F and U. Right, so what you need to do, right, is figure out the form of this, right? So you have to identify the terms, right? So we have dragons, friendly, users of illegal drugs, right? So I just used D, F, and U, right? Presumably you did the same thing. So then the question is, well, what's left over, right? So one thing you might have done is written this down and then put the terms over, or sorry, put the terms over the English terms, right? So dragons, friendly, users of illegal drugs, right? And that would give you all something who are something or something else, right? So the correct answer, right, is all D who are F or U, right? So good. Great, and I'm recording this before everyone's taken it. So far, everyone's gotten it right, which is good. Okay. True or false, right? The counterexample countermodel method can be used to show that an argument form is valid. So the answer here is false, right? You can't use the counterexample or countermodel method to show that an argument form is valid, right? What you're trying to do in using this method, right, is to construct an instance of an argument with that same form, right, where the premises are true and the conclusion's false. Right? So simply producing an instance where the premises are true and the conclusion is true doesn't show that the argument's valid, right? Because it's still possible, for all you know, right, given that one model you've given, that the premises could be true and the conclusion false at the same time. Right? So we can only use this method to prove that an argument form is invalid. Right? So the answer is false. Again, so far everyone's gotten this right. Next question. If an argument with a particular form is sound, then every argument with that same form is sound. Okay, so true or false? Well, at the point that I'm writing or recording this, 7 of you think it's true and 4 of you think it's false. It turns out that the minority is correct here. Right? The answer is false. Right? So think about it this way. What's required for soundness? Well, an argument has to be valid, right? And its premises have to be true. Okay, so what's required for validity? Right? It's not possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion false at the same time. So suppose you have an argument form, right, and you have an argument of that form, and that argument is sound, right? Can you conclude that every argument with that same form is sound? Well, obviously not, right? Because all that you've shown, right, or all that you'd be able to infer from this right, is that the argument's valid, right? You wouldn't be able to show that every argument with the same form has true premises, right? So the answer is false. Next question. To show that an argument form is invalid, one constructs a counterexample where an argument of the same form has true premises and a false conclusion. Right? True or false? So far, everyone's gotten it right. The answer is true. That's just what it is to construct a counterexample, right? It's to show that a form is invalid. And doing that by constructing an argument of the same form with true premises and false conclusion. Right? So if you have any idea what it is that we're doing this week, you get this one right. Okay. So here's our longer one, right? So you were supposed to construct and explain a counterexample or countermodel to show that the following argument is invalid. Some numbers are odd, some numbers are even, therefore some numbers are both odd and even. Right? So to do this, you need to identify the form of the argument. Right? So tell me what the form of the argument is. Second, select values for the terms that show that the argument is invalid. Right? And be sure to explain why your counterexample shows that the argument is invalid. Right? So to do that, you're going to need to appeal to the definition of validity. Right? So first, what's the form of the argument? You should have come up with something like some n are O, some n are E, therefore some n are both O and E. Right? So good. Most people were able to do this so far. In fact, I think everyone was. And then second, you needed to select values for the terms to show that the argument's invalid. Right? So what you needed to do, right, is supply some meaning for n, O, and E, right, that made the premises true and the conclusion false at the same time. Okay, so here's one thing that people seem to be having trouble with given the homework that was due Friday night and what I've seen so far on this. It's that people just give me the form and then don't give me a counterexample or countermodel. So maybe you misunderstood the instructions, or maybe you don't know how to do that, but what you need to do, right, is specify meanings for N, O, and E, right, that show that the premises could be true and the conclusion false, right, in an argument of that same form. Okay, so there are lots of things that people come up with. Let me try to come up with one off the top of my head. Some people are tall, some people are even, therefore some people are both, or sorry, some people are tall, some people are short, therefore some people are both tall and short. Okay, so premises are obviously true, conclusion can't be true, right? No one can be both tall and short. Okay, so something like that, right? So you needed to specify some meaning for N, O, and E, right? That made the premises true and the conclusion false, right? That's what you do to show that the argument's invalid. Okay. So finally, why does that show that the argument is invalid? Well, remember that arguments of the same form are all either valid or invalid, right? An argument's valid if and only if it's not possible for its premises to be true and its conclusion false at the same time, right? We've given an example of an argument with the same form that's invalid, right? So the initial argument, some numbers are odd, some numbers are even, therefore some numbers are both odd and even, is itself invalid. Okay, cool. So that was the quiz. Hopefully this is helpful. I'm not sure how many people actually watch these. But in any case, good luck this week, and please, please, please let me know if you have any questions about anything that we've covered so far, or that we're covering in this coming week, or what we're going to cover, right? Very few of you have reached out to me, and that's bad, right? So, yeah, anyway, good luck.